Good evening. Bonjour tout le monde. How's everybody doing? Yes. How's everybody feeling? Strong, right? Good. So, this is part 2. Finishing up. I don't know how many parts I'm going to do here, but right now this is part 2 of my story of my contribution to the success of the Beastie Boys' Ill Communication album, which is now 25 years old. So where I left off in the last video, I was talking about being in LA. I'd already talked about, the beginning of how I connected with the Beastie Boys, and how Adam Yauch, R.I.P., first suggested to me that I should meet the president of Capitol Records. They had made Paul's Boutique, which didn't do anything. It caught a brick. So their first album, I'll backtrack a little bit. Their first album was on Def Jam, Licensed to Ill. Their first record, they left Def Jam, went to, and this is known, I'm not saying nothing new, but they went to Capitol, moved to California, went to Capitol, and did a record called Paul's Boutique, and kind of changed direction a little bit. Was kind of rocking as a band and less of a hip hop group. And Paul's Boutique caught a brick, and they went back and in the studio and started making Ill Communication. And as I said in the first video in part 1, DJ Hurricane, the Hurra, was my man. We had spent time in Japan together when I was organizing events. I did a big event in Tokyo by organizing the International Stussy Tribe, first international gathering of International Stussy Tribe. And Hurricane was in a group called the Afros, and I put the Afros on the bill and brought the Afros to Japan to perform at the first annual International Stussy Tribe party. Fast forward, I run into Hurricane in LA a few years later. I'm out there. Boom, he's now the DJ for the Beastie Boys, and he's making a solo record on their record label, Grand Royal, which is a subsidiary of Capitol EMI Records. On that record, the Hurra, I appear on that record, as I said in the first video, and in a hook on a song called Comin' OFF, and another one too. I think it was more than one record which I appear on. As I said, I had a verse on that record, me and Ty Bud and Hurricane, but my shit hit the cutting floor, so I never got no light on that record as an MC, but I used to toy around with that idea. I wasn't really involved in house music. I was still listening to it and still going to clubs, but I wasn't involved in production like I am now. But anyway, so to fast track and bring you back up to speed, I think the last thing I was talking about was my man Malik Levy, who had gotten a job as an A&R at Capitol EMI Records. And again, Capitol had fell off like crazy. After the Hammer era, they fired everybody. They had no staff. They brought in a new president, and the Beastie Boys endured through all of this. Out of everybody that got dropped, they stayed at Capitol and had another record to make. I don't know how many records was in their contract, but I know they were making another record. And so I used to go by the studio to hang out with Hurricane and the Beastie Boys, and different artists would come by and hang out. Busta Rhymes would come through, Q-Tip from Tribe Called Quest, Spike Jones, all these skaters, and it was crazy. It was like they had a magazine called Grand Royal, dope magazine. This guy named Bob something did the magazine. Mario Caldato was always there running the studio from the looks of it. And we'd be in there all night playing ball, partying, getting high. And like I said in the first video, and I'm going to just touch on it real quick, Adam Yauch and I went outside and was smoking an American Spirit, because you could smoke weed in the studio, but you couldn't smoke cigarettes. And I smoked cigarettes at the time. Went outside, had a cigarette, and Yauch was like, "Yo, Elo, what you doing? Like, what you gonna be? How long you gonna be out here?" I was like, "I don't know." Might go back to New York. I don't know. Maybe back to Japan. Maybe, Chicago. I'm just gonna keep moving like I always do. And so he was like, "Yo, we got a new president." The president being a man by the name of Gary Gersh. Gary used to be an A&R at Geffen Records, and he was famous for discovering a group called Nirvana. Gary was a dope cat, had a lot of innovative ideas, and they made him president, and they made my man Matt Robinson vice president of A&R of Black Music, I think it was, and my man Malik Levy got the job as A&R. Kim Bowie was there, Patrick Clifford was there, Phil Costello, Bruce Reiner. I could keep naming fools, but anyway, Tracy Waples eventually came there. I know y'all know Tracy Waples if you follow hip hop. Mariah Carey, Jay-Z, P. Diddy, she's a legend. Shout out to Tracy Waples, Trey Wap. And so anyway, after Malik got hired, Malik being my little brother, me and my girl had broke up. She moved out, put me out. Was like, I don't know what you're gonna do. You do your thing. So I had all my stuff. I'm like, I'm getting ready to go back to New York. I run into Malik. He got a big van. He's like, man, don't go back. I'm telling you, everything's gonna be good. Grab your stuff, throw it in the van, take it to my crib in Silver Lake. Him and Ali. He lived with Ali, Mama Ali. Ali Levy, how are you? Respect. And I stayed with Malik for a little bit, and one morning he woke me up like, yo, come on, I'm taking you to the office. I'm like, what's up? He was like, they gonna hire you. I told him about you, they feeling you, you gotta meet him. Talking about Gary Gersh. So I get up, I go to the office with Malik. We go to Capitol, he got his office, my little brother doing it. I'm happy for him, it's all good. I think it's a great thing. So I meet Gary Gersh, and we get on. Gary's a real cool dude. He saw I had flavor. I never worked in the music business. I never had a job as a record executive ever. And I guess the endorsement from Adam Yauch, Matt Robinson, Malik Levy was enough. And then I know how to sell myself. I got in the building, Hollywood and Vine, and that round building, you all know it is world famous. And I'm like, this is maybe not a bad idea. Like I said, I never had a desire. I never dreamt of being a record executive, so that wasn't in my trajectory, in my vortex. But I was involved in music, and I wanted to be involved in music, so I was like, well, let's see what this is. So I got hired. As director of marketing and artist development, and they had no groups. They had nothing. They had like Bonnie Raitt and the Foo Fighters and some other stuff, Garth Brooks and the Beastie Boys, and I think there was a little bit of a lapse because I had left town or something like that. But I hadn't been by G-Sun in a while, and I didn't know how far along Hurricane was with his record, and I don't know how far along the Beasties were with Ill Communication. But during the process of recording Ill Communication, I was there. We would be there almost every night. When Hurricane shot his videos, I'm in one of the videos. The Beasties, when they had a track on a movie called CB4, and I remember going to the premiere. Me, Mike D, Hurricane, and the crew ran into Fab Five Freddy, interviewed us for Yo MTV Raps. Not me, them. I just happened to be with them. So so I was in and around the time when the record was being made, where the band was rehearsing, and like I said, I got to know the Beastie Boys pretty not very well. I wouldn't say that, we were best friends, but if you ask them who Elo is, they'll tell you. And I go by the name of Elo now to my close associates and friends and those that knew me back then. So now I work at the label. So I would see Mike D quite often. He would come through. Yauch would come through sometimes. Horvitz never really came through that much. I never saw him at Capitol really, except for important meetings, and I wasn't involved in those meetings. I was only involved in the meetings that had to do with things that I was doing. But a year almost passed, or 6-7 months, and the Beasties record was coming up. And I was learning how the record business worked while I was getting paid. Got a Range Rover, got a townhouse in Studio City. I was loving life. Everything was great. You know, the law of attraction got me, you know, got my vortex in smash. So, so when the conversation about in the marketing meetings about the Beastie Boys record came up, the promotion department had an elaborate plan. They were going to appear on MTV and play Sabotage. When I heard the first CD with the tracks on there, it was a lot of rock stuff. It was a lot of funk stuff, a lot of, you know, alternative stuff. It was very innovative, that record. But there was one record on there that really stood out to me. Now, let me establish one thing. As I said, the Beastie Boys left Def Jam and had the number one first hip-hop record to go number one on Billboard charts. Groundbreaking. That record probably to this day still sells, you know, a few 100,000 a year. It's a great record, Licensed to Ill. Like I said, then they moved to California and put an album out called Paul's Boutique that caught a brick, because their core audience was, I guess, looking for more of ill communication, which is what fans do. I mean, Licensed to Ill. And that record wasn't nothing like Licensed to Ill. It was no Rick Rubin production as far as I can remember. I think it was all Dust Brothers. And I thought it was a dope record, but it got lost in the translation to the fan base and the hip-hop base. Hip-hop was changing a lot. Hip-hop was getting grimier. Gangster rap was starting to come into the fold. Hardcore groups like MOP and Onyx and, you know, Naughty by Nature. They was coming with lyrics and hard beats and rah-rah vibes, and it was a different era. So the Beastie Boys didn't really fit in that with Paul's Boutique. And so when I heard the first, they would distribute the record to the executives around the label, you know, so we could all hear it. And because I was in marketing and artist development, you know, they were like, okay, you come to the meeting, because it's a rap record, you know, we want you to, you know, do what you do. Mind you, I had never done this before, but I, you know, had ideas and had always been known as an ideas man. And so I'm thinking, how can I do my part? So the pop department and the rock department had an elaborate plan. They were spending money on this record, you know, for promotion. The Beasties were kind of all inclusive and did their own videos and, you know, didn't spend a lot of money. But the record label was behind this record and was gonna push it to rock radio. Sabotage was a rock record, an amazing record, did very well for them. But there was one record that stood out on this album to me that I thought, this record might be the record that could reintroduce the Beastie Boys back to the hip hop world, which. And anybody that know what was happening in those days know wasn't nobody checking for the Beastie Boys, especially in Harlem, in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, in the hood. The hood was not checking for the Beastie Boys, not at all. And so for me to do my job, I needed a tool that would allow me to go at this. And meanwhile, again, remember, I never worked at the record label, so I didn't know how things worked. The lead person, Tim Devine, was the A&R on that record, and the head of promotion was Phil Costello. The radio promotion was John Faggett and Bruce Reiner. They all did promotion in different areas of rock radio around the country. There's some guys doing college radio and blah, blah, blah. But so the game plan was Sabotage, full force on Sabotage. And I thought, I can't do anything with that record. You know, that's not gonna get them the hip hop audience. So I suggested in a meeting that we also put out and promote that song called "Get It Together," which had Q-Tip on the record. Now, I'm sure you heard interviews, you know the story with that. If you haven't, just real briefly, Q-Tip came by the studio, was hanging out. They was playing beats, the band was playing, Fools was freestyling. I wasn't there that particular night, but I did hear that song. Q-Tip rhymed, he was high apparently, he even said it himself, so I'm not saying anything that has anything to do with something that's not my business. What I am saying is giving you a recollection from my point of view. And I could tell by the way the record sounded. Turns out Mario Caldado was recording Q-Tip while he was freestyling. And they weren't making a record. He just happened to be at the studio because they're friends. Biz Markie came to the studio. They did a version of Benny and the Jets that was ridiculous, but Elton John wouldn't clear it, so it never came out. If you can find it on the internet, find it. Biz is singing Benny and the Jets and the Beastie Boys are playing, and it's dope. I wanted that record. They were like, no, you can't have it. We can't clear it. It's not going to happen. So from my recollection, and I heard Q-Tip say this in the interview, he was bugging out, just rhyming, freestyling, and left. He said next time he heard, the record came out. And here's why. What happened was I suggested in a marketing meeting that we go out with that record now. I wanted to get that record and promote it. And everybody in the label was against that. They were like, no, you can't do that. That's going to confuse rock radio. That's going to confuse their fan base. We're trying to build them up with the rock crowd. We can't do that. I was like, you guys are the experts, but I do know one thing. Don't nobody in Harlem know what's going on with rock radio. And the audience that I'm going to go to don't care about rock radio. And they don't care about the Beastie Boys. But I think this is a dope record. So I want to give this record to the right people. I want to press up a white label. This was my game plan. Press up a white label, just write Get It Together on it and drop in a white label. Don't say Capital on nothing. Press up a white label, put that song on there only. And inside in the sleeve, put my beeper number. And I have a voicemail on there and tell people blah, blah, blah. And they thought I was crazy. They was like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's ridiculous. No one does that. That's like, and they shot me down, laughed at me in the marketing meeting. And being that I'm from the south side of Chicago, I'm not easily intimidated, nor do I back down from a challenge. And so I figured, well, the Beastie Boys are gonna probably sell a lot of records on this, but the hip hop audience is not gonna acknowledge them. That'll be just like Paul's Boutique, except it's gonna win. I knew Ill Communication was a dope record, but so what happened was Gary Gersh, being the G that he is, double G, we used to call him G Status because Gary Gersh, Gucci Gary, G Status said to me, do whatever you want to do. I don't care. Do it. Don't even worry about that. And in one meeting one time at a summit, he said in front of everybody, you all leave Elo alone. Let him do it. Because if he becomes more like you, we're not going to be successful. We're going to be successful if he does what he does. And Gary gave me my green light. So outside of anything that was happening at the label, I took that record and I pressed up white labels. And my man Albie Ragusa, who was A&R at Tommy Boy Records. I knew Albie since Albie was working on Wall Street. We go back like my hairline. And so Albie had a list, because he used to do promotions at Tommy Boy. He had the list of all the DJs: Kid Capri, SNS, Big Cap, Ron G, Showtime, Buck Wild, every mixtape cat in Harlem. And back in those days, if you wasn't on a DJ mixtape, you wasn't popping. you got to be on a mixtape, and that's how we got new hip hop music. Go to Harlem and get a cassette. Whoever got the hot new cassette out had the joints on it. That's what you went, and where you went. So, and I had a gang of those tapes, so I knew that was the way to go. So what I did was I got that list and I sent 2 copies to every DJ on that list. Just get it together, nothing else. And it didn't say the Beastie Boys, it didn't say Q-Tip, it just said get it together, and in my handwriting. So if you find that record online, you see a white label, it says get it together, and I wrote that. I didn't want anything else on it. It couldn't say Capital, because as soon as they said Capital, they would have tossed it. So it was a Jedi mind trick. And so I sent it out. I sent it to some record stores, and just waited. Gave it a week or so. Next thing I know, my beep was going off. My voicemail is going crazy. Record stores are calling me, going, I need this record. What's the deal? What's up? I'm like, yo. I go to the next market meeting. I go, yo, something's happening. I think this is getting ready to bubble. And so the album is not done yet. The album is not out. And so, but they're getting ready with Sabotage and getting ready to do the full frontal assault. And so yes, and just to prove that this record was on fire, I went up to the Bronx. At that point I was pursuing Kool Keith from Ultramagnetic MCs, who I knew, and I knew he was from the Bronx, and I was trying to get my man Malik to sign him solo. Kool Keith had never done a solo record. I take that back. Him and Dan the Automator had done Dr. Octagon, and I heard that. But it was an independent thing. I felt like Keith should be on the major label. I've always been a huge Ultramagnetic MCs fan. So I told Malik, I'm going to find Keith. If I find Keith, you're going to sign him. Malik was like, no doubt. Because Malik was A&R, I was marketing artist development. So after we get an artist, I would kick in. I would get the styling done, pick the photographers, find the directors I was that guy, the creative guy behind that. So if Malik got a record, hello, we got this record, what are we doing? I would lace them and make them fresh, and we would do everything. So I'm up in the Bronx, and Said G is playing in a basketball tournament. I'm trying to get him to loop me in with Keith, and trying to get looped in with him. And this kid walks by with a ghetto blitz, Puerto Rican kid. We up on by Grand Concourse, up in Harlem. Up in the Bronx. And this kid walks by with his boombox and he's just bumping the joint. He's bumping Beastie Boys. I run up to him. I'm like, yo, what is that? He was like, this is new joint on SNS tape, or it was either SNS or Big Cap or one of the mixtape dudes from back in the day. This is the 90s. This is like 95, 25 years ago, 94. And so I go to Harlem and I go buy all the tapes. We own every one of those cassette tapes. Every one. I'm like, yo, we got something here. The word spread like a disease. Everybody was like, you heard this new joint? They thought it was a Tribe Called Quest record, who was hotter than fish grease. Obviously, Q-Tip always been on fire. I don't think he had a record out at the time. And so now they find out it's on Capitol Records and it's the Beastie Boys. The calls are coming in. And also I hit college radio. So college radio's rocking it. Everybody's rocking this record. Get It Together is everywhere now. Hip hop is loving this record. They loving the Beastie Boys. They love Q-Tip, obviously. And so I go back to the label. I'm like, yo, this shit is out of control. We need to do something. So I proposed the idea of doing a double promotion. So still do Sabotage, do the video. Now I want to do a video for Get It Together, because we got a record here. I know I can get it on Yo MTV Raps. I know I can get it on BET Rap. What's that show called on BET? The Rap Basement or something like that. Joe, what's his name? Joe Claire. Rap. I forgot. That's 25 years ago. This brain don't really hold all that. This is my first time thinking about this and talking about this in almost 25 years. And so Rap City was the name of the show. Rap City. And so I reach out to Chris Lighty, R.I.P. Chris Lighty, and I'm like, yo, I want to do a video with you. No, Q-Tip ain't doing no video with the Beastie Boys. And from what I understand, it wasn't a lot of cooperation with putting this record out. Now, I don't know. I'm telling you from the record label standpoint. I worked for the label, and what I understood, there was a little bit of hesitation. I don't think Q-Tip necessarily, somebody, maybe Tip did like the record. I don't know. I'm not going to open that up, and because I don't really know. And I don't want to, mistalk and say the wrong thing and offend anybody or make anybody no more of an enemy than they might already be. But I'm telling you the truth from my point of view, and this can be verified. This is a true story. It's not based on a true story. This is a true story. So we never got a video. I ended up organizing a party in New York for the Beasties, and everybody came. Funkmaster Flex came. The record was so crazy that everybody showed up. We had a great party. SNS DJ, Doo-Wop. Oh, that's whose mixtape. It was on Doo-Wop's mixtape. I don't know if y'all remember Doo-Wop, but Doo-Wop used to be fire. He used to hurt him. Clue, all them guys. That was the golden era. And it was on the album, so I obviously they cleared it with Q-Tip's people, and Q-Tip signed off on it because it ended up on the album. But it wasn't made. This is my understanding, how I know the story. Q-Tip didn't know he was being recorded, and the Beastie Boys went back and put their lyrics around what Q-Tip had said and made a record out of it. Mario, whoever did it, because Mario recorded Tip's vocals. And so it made the album without a video. And when the album came out, Ill Communication, if my memory serves me correctly, entered the chart at the rap chart and the black chart on Billboard at number 2. This is the album with no video, no promotion, just what I did with that record with the white label. I did a white label, as I said, and gave it to the right DJs. I had a good feeling about the record, and it worked. The record label was against that idea. They did not want to support me. They laughed at me. They thought I was crazy. They thought I was going to fuck up their shit. They thought I was going to sabotage Ill Communication. But little did they know, my instinct was that this record it was heat. I knew that record was, because it bounced. That shit rocked. Get it together. See what's happening. I want to. Q-Tip, even though he was freestyling, didn't write the rhyme and didn't, I'm sure if they had given him a chance, he would have bodied that shit. But I think he bodied it. I thought it was a dope lyric. The Beastie Boys are quirky and was always, fun and pranking and shit. So it sounded like it worked in context to what they did. It was just, sometimes accidents happen in a very positive way. It was the perfect storm. And so the record entered number 2 on the black chart. And the only reason why, when it was released, I don't think it didn't hit number 1 is because it came out on the same day as the Above the Rim soundtrack, which was Tupac, Hotter Than Fish Grease, the whole Death Row, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Dog Pound. Everybody was on that Above the Rim soundtrack. But for the Beastie Boys, who it was pretty much dead in the water to come in at number 2 with no promotion to black radio, no promotion to no video. It was only that white label that went out to the DJs. I mean, I sent it to DJs in Miami. I went to Miami. I went to Atlanta. I went to Chicago. I was in Los Angeles. I went to Texas. I went there and I met the DJs and I gave them that record. All the right DJs, the colleges of those days, had that record and they loved it and they played it and it rocked any party. And, you know, after which, you know, everyone thought I was a genius. They was like, oh shit. And I really could do whatever I wanted to do then, which also coincided with what became, for me, as far as I knew, no major label had ever done this. I did a mixtape copying the whole concept of what was happening in Harlem with the DJs. I got these cats called what were their names? Action Pack. Action Pack. I like their mixtapes. I don't know where Action Pack is, but Action Pack made me a mixtape, and it was all Capital stuff. And I just did remix. I gave them the lyrics, and they put break beats under it, just kind of make it have flavor. Get It Together was on there, and another record that was on there, which was a group that was coming down the pipes on Capital, was a group called Channel Live, who I did the same thing with a record called Madism. And I'll tell you the story about Madism and Channel Live on another video. Or I'm gonna probably need to do this a better way. Doing it like this, just in my flat in downtown Manhattan, chilling, watching 2019 Roland Garros, the men's singles, live from France. I just decided to do it this way. This is part 2. I'm gonna now go to stay tuned for part 3. This is Lano Brazil, LO7 Self signing off, and I'm gonna talk to you. All right.